do we start seeing crushes in our kids around the same time as you would in a neurotypical child?
I mean, I think it varies, depending on the severity of the disorder with the kids. But yeah, I think with a lot of our kids, we start to see some of the crushes that, even though they might, topically look a little bit different, but there's that affection, cuddling, that wanting to be with people, either it be a peer or it be a teacher or an aide, that you typically would get at, your junior high school levels.
Right, like Wyatt going up and just basically touching one of his aides, on the breast. That might qualify as a little bit of a crush.
Yeah, I mean, and again, and I laugh because, there's the social norm part of it that we all know what part of it is appropriate and not. But our kids, they're still learning that. They're still learning what those social norms are. They're still learning what those social cues are. However, that doesn't take away that internal feeling to want to connect, that want to be with someone that they're affectionate to. And like I said, it could be anywhere from one of the adults, that teaches them or caretakes for them, down to their peers, where they want to stay with those peers, even though they might be bothering them or annoying them. They want to be with them. They want to stay with them. They want to talk about them, ad nauseum. And the reason is because they have that connection and they want to share it.
So how do we stop that little incident that I just described from happening? Do we talk about it in advance, and do we teach that sort of body awareness and what's appropriate before this happens?
Well, both. I mean, there's a lot of different things. Obviously, we want to do antecedent modifications, which is, again, talking about, pre-learning, what do you do when you want to talk to someone? What do you do when you want to be with them or you want to touch them? Where do you touch them? Their arms, their hands, maybe their shoulder, those types of things. And then there's the language part of it, the replacement behavior. We want him to use his language more, say, I want to sit with you, or can we go play, or can I, again, if we're talking with a peer, something maybe like, can I hold your hand, or sit with me for lunch, those types of things. So there is, a lot of kind of pre-learning on what to do. But then when the actual, situation is occurring and we know there's an identified person, we want to use, his language as well as his social awareness to continue to, to grow.
Now, Shannon, you said Jem has had a crush already.
Yeah, and in fact, I loved Parenthood. It just finished the series, and there was a storyline in Parenthood where Max Burkholder, who played a young man on the autism spectrum, had a crush on a girl and wasn't really understanding the cues that she was giving back. She was friends with him and really cared about him deeply, but he thought that meant, we're going to be together for the rest of our lives. And I watched as the mom in the show was trying to get in and make everything so that nobody would ever get hurt. And I thought, I have years before I have to worry about this. And then last week, my son, and I have to be careful in case people are watching,
I know.
But it was disclosed to me that there was somebody that there was a particular interest in, and I'm already in that space, and I want to get in there, Vince, and I want to, kind of massage things and tell him don't have those feelings, and I'm stopping myself. But on both sides of it, what kinds of things can parents do to help kids to understand what the signals are, and what can parents do to stop ourselves from wanting to get in and mix in and make it worse?
Well, I think it's exactly what you said. We can't change emotions. We can't go in there and stop him from, or any of our kids from feeling a certain thing, right? Or if they're attracted to someone, or again, want to have that social connection, which we've been trying and working on and to some extent programming for years, right? So now we're seeing the generalization, the natural, kind of fluidity of this happening. And again, as parents, we kind of go, whoa, maybe this is farther than we want it to go. But we can't stop it. And I think we're setting ourselves up for bigger problems when we try to stop it. But from a parental point of view, we want to look at this as education. We want to look at this as a learning opportunity for them to work on their social awareness, to work on their social cueing, to work on their social language, and how to foster that relationship, whatever it may be. Now, again, if there's a heartbreak that comes into it where one likes one more than the other, again, that's a very natural progression and a learning opportunity that happens with all our kids, right? And so we want to use those opportunities to continue to teach our kids at whatever level they're at, the social awareness, the social language, the social cueing that they need to know.
Now, dating is a big topic, so we might want to save that for later. But sexuality, let's kind of just get there for a little bit. You and I had a conversation one night, and we were talking about some of the physical changes that happen with boys, and obviously they happen with girls too, around the ages of 11, 12, 13. And boys, a particular, change that comes up.
It's all out there for them, so they can't help but notice when things are changing, right?
So we've been dealing with this. Let me just tell you, Vince, the way we've been dealing with it at the advice of our supervisor is when we see it happening, that physical occurrence that happens in boys, I don't have to name it, we say, do you need private time? Hands down, go to your room if you'd like private time.
Right.
And we don't necessarily get into this whole discussion about it. Is that how you recommend kind of when those things first come up?
And we're just slightly different because we do talk about it, but I say, hey, dude, that's yours. Do whatever you want with it as long as you don't hurt it, but take it behind a closed door.
Okay. Well, I think there's also different levels there of understanding. Wyatt is just doing something because it feels good, and I say, that's a private thing, and I'm not yet ready for the talk.
But I think it's similar to what Shannon was saying as well. I mean, with both boys, in all situations when you have that pubescent boys, right? They're going into puberty. They're starting, to have erections where a lot of times there's not a reason or rhyme. It just,
in the grocery store.
It just happens.
That's a good one.
All boys and
love
men
that. You're in line, and all of a sudden you look down, and that's my kid.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, a lot of times it happens without, like I said, without reason or without cause, and I think every young male has had that embarrassing moment, either being in class or, like you said, at the grocery store or out on the soccer field, and you're like, what the heck? So like you guys are saying, trying to shame it or saying it's embarrassing or saying that, it's something that shouldn't be happening, obviously is something that they don't have control over, and that would be inappropriate. But having them go and be alone. This is a time when you see, that physical reaction for whatever reason. That's a time to be by yourself. You go to the bedroom, go to the bathroom. Each parent and each family on what happens from then is a little bit different based on, their belief systems and what they want to do. But the idea, though, is that when that happens, it's okay, but that's your sign to be alone. That's your sign to go into another room or go into a different environment so that you're by yourself until it is either handled or it naturally resolves.
Now, I would imagine, we don't have girls, but I would imagine with girls this can be a difficult time because, let's face it, that's a pretty major physical change girls go through. Do you advise parents to deal with that in a particular way, the onset of menstruation?
No, I think, again, it's difficult depending on the level of understanding per child, but I think when you start to get in nowadays, I mean, we're talking as early as 11 years old, we have to start, talking about, what's going to happen. And I think each family, each parent has somewhat of an understanding or at least an instinct on around what time, what age that their child's going to start puberty, start that menstruation cycle. And that's when it's time to start talking about it and start preparing, either it be practicing on what to do with pads, on maybe a higher level understanding about talking about what menstruation is, maybe social stories and those types of things. So you're looking at every different angle from your preparing, kind of your preparedness, getting them to understand what pads are, what you do with them, how you do it, and when it's necessary, to actually the more of the biological understanding of what's going on. Right. But I do think that some preparedness, is a good idea when the girls are getting to that age.